Attention! All things shared in this video are simply the opinions of the Unexplained Files. The following footage is not tampered with, and all of the events and reactions are unplanned and genuine.
Good evening everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Unexplained Files. So far on our channel we focus a lot on supernatural and cryptids and a very specific form of the unexplained. But here at the Unexplained Files we want to expand to all things that are unknown, all things that are peculiar. And in today's instance we're going to be taking a look at one of the, I think, a more well-known conspiracy theory in the hollow earth theory. The belief that the earth is hollow, you can access it through the poles, and that there are cities inside of the planet. And I'm not going to say that I believe it or not. I'm going to go into this with an open mind. But we have a video here that I think covers the supposed accounts of Richard Byrd, a pilot who was the first person to fly over both the poles, who, I don't know if he wrote it in a diary or whether it was like recorded somewhere, but he apparently said that upon one instance of flying over the South Pole or over Antarctica, that he found an entrance into the globe where it went from the snowy environment to lush tropical environment with dinosaurs and things going on. That's as much as I know. It could be a lot of mixed information. I haven't seen this video yet, but let's jump into it and see what we discover.
August 1946. Esteemed U.S. naval officer and explorer Admiral Richard Byrd, one of the first pilots to fly over both the North and South Poles, organizes Operation High Jump, the largest expedition ever to travel to Antarctica. With 13 ships, 23 aircraft, and over 4,700 military personnel.
Because isn't it strange? It is Antarctica, isn't it? Where there's like a treaty where no one's allowed to settle there, and all.
Well, after years and years of claims and arguments over who owns it, I think the way that it works now is that I don't know if it's that it doesn't technically belong to anyone, but there are kind of bases that are operated by countries who kind of work with each other. Because I know there's a lot of research bases out there, but I do find it very weird. The first thing that this makes me think of is, why military personnel? Like when you hear about like Scott and all the expeditions of getting to the North Pole and there's no military presence, it's I don't know if these people were like in the military themselves, but I know it was mainly just a expedition for science's sake, whereas this is very like fucking aircraft hangars and like soldiers and personnel, which is very weird.
Yeah, I always have this weird like theory that there was something there like thousands of years ago before it was like an ice continent. You know, there might have been some kind of advanced civilization. You know, who knows? But
I mean, it is a weird part of the earth when you think about it. It's the only continent that doesn't have native people, for one. It doesn't have people living there off the bat. You can't, as we know it, you can't really just go there or live there. It's very dangerous. It's not entirely explored. So it's a very strange kind of unknown. I imagine what we think of Antarctica is probably what the Europeans would have felt about the New World, you know, in the 1500s about the Americas. So, although obviously there was people there, but still.
Admiral Byrd was asked if he would mount a large armada and go for 4 months. It was supposed to be that they would go in December, January, February, and March, and there was a list of military goals that they were to achieve. But by the end of February, something happened.
One of the mission's official goals was investigating sites for potential military bases in Antarctica.
why would you want to though? What's there?
That's what I'm thinking. I mean, so this was the 40s, right? Was this, or did it say it was before that?
I'd imagine it's around that time.
Yeah. So obviously the 40s, World War II, there's tensions between I don't know if the tensions between like the Western world and Russia had really started by that point, or whether they were there, but they were kind of put aside for the war, and then after they mount it back up again. But obviously, with everything that then turned into the Cold War after World War II, it's not really surprising that you've got America who wants to be there and set up something, just so that they've kind of got that first mover's advantage over anyone else. But
makes me wonder why though. There's nothing there, you know, like apart from being out the way.
Yeah, I mean, for scientific research, I can understand why people want to be there, but military presence with military goals, I'm kind of like, does make me think, what the fuck is going on there and why?
Probably watching it, it'll explain it all now.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Admiral Byrd allegedly came upon something highly unexpected.
This story is said to come from his diaries, not his published account of the trip, but something he held back and then later was suppressed by government authorities that found it frightening.
Admiral Byrd heard there was an entrance to the center of the Earth through the South Pole. And he took planes into the South, under the South Pole. And when he did that, he discovered that as he flew over the pole, suddenly he's looking at things that shouldn't be there. I mean, it was temperate. His squadron flew under the Earth, into the Earth.
It turns into this lush and green. He tells how all of a sudden he starts to see a shimmering rainbow city that's made of crystal. His airplane is taken control of when he suddenly sees these flying disc-shaped objects around them that lead him to the ground. Whereupon he's escorted into a cavernous type of an area where he meets a being he refers to as the Master in his diary.
This ramps up very fucking quick. Like, when they first start saying, like big, vast caves, there are caves around the planet, especially, is it in Vietnam or somewhere like that where there's a cave, or somewhere there's the giant caves that people will go to and it takes them days to sort of get through, and there's an entire ecosystem down there that's completely diverse from everything that's above. So could there be big vast open caves that have different ecosystems to what's above? It's feasible. Like cities carved out of crystal, that's getting a bit mad, but realistically there have been cultures and civilizations that have dug out entire cities underground. That has happened, and people have lived in them for a long time, and that's like not even contested, that's straight up happened. So are these both things out of possibility or realm of reality? Not massively.
Yeah, well, I just saw that it says ancient aliens. I was like, yeah, because it sounds like there's a lot of talk about they think aliens have got underground bases, even like underwater, like bases. And I've heard talk about that, like they live underground. Some of them, or they could be interdimensional, who knows? But
I mean,
it's intriguing.
To think that you couldn't have, like, if people had been isolated on Antarctica and they had to live underground because of the environment, these are behaviours that humans have done before in environments where you can't survive above in the cold. Like your basic survival camping situation in a shit ton of snow, if you can't build anything, is to dig under. This is a way more extreme version of that, but could a society develop underground?
But then you've got,
maybe.
I can't remember where it is it? I don't know if it's in Turkey or somewhere, I can't remember, I have to look it up. There's that underground city, remember?
And it's Cappadocia.
Is it? Yeah, and it's like 18 stories tall, but they got all like ventilation, there was like church, and then they had water, like reservoirs at the bottom, and
there's multiple instances of entire cities.
And I'm curious, especially about that one, because obviously they did that for a reason. There must have been some catastrophe above ground that made them do it.
The cities carved underground part, that makes sense. The different habitats and everything underground, that makes sense. Even now, like luscious plant life and things like that doesn't really make as much sense because there's no light getting in. So how do the plants work in that regard? There is like biological matter that doesn't need the sun, but it's very different. It's not lush greenery because it can't photosynthesize. So how the fuck is that going to happen? And if there are people down there, could they be more technologically advanced? That's where it starts to get a bit mental. And if they're saying there's like flying crafts and this and this and this, it'd be funny, they're underground, why do they need to fly? No, I don't know, it's going a bit mad. But there are some parts of this to me seem very feasible, and components of it that do exist, just separate from each other. Underground cities, they exist. Open caves with different environments, they exist. Now it's starting to put them together, and crystalline glowing cities with ethereal beings. Now we're getting a bit mad.
The master tells him that they're highly disappointed in what humans are doing with nuclear weapons, and how they've recently destroyed Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and they really are concerned about what is going on the surface of the planet.
For UFO researchers, this account from Admiral Byrd's diary is particularly significant due to the fact that the modern UFO era began right after World War II and the detonation of the first atomic bombs. It has also been noted that a high number of UFO sightings have been reported in the vicinity of nuclear missile silos.
Yeah, but if there's nuclear missile things, there's obviously military installations. If there's things flying about all over military installations, maybe it's just military shit you're not supposed to know about.
I know I've heard a lot of stories where supposed aliens have gone over military bases and they think they've been kind of like examining them and stuff, and heard one where they've like shut down the silos so they can't fire and stuff. Yeah.
To me, what makes more sense is, well, obviously maybe not at this time period, but in later years, like espionage is a big thing. You could just have something flying from one country to another and going, yeah, no, you're not blowing us up, bang. Sort of, I don't know, it does open up a lot of questions, but what intrigues me more is the possibility of, rather than looking out and thinking, oh, aliens, and people not shutting down the idea of aliens, maybe in fact governments and us want us to be thinking about aliens because it turns the spotlight off of what they're doing and the bullshit that they're doing. Not to say I don't think aliens, I think aliens are real, but whether they've been to Earth, I really don't know.
And where are they from anyway? They could be interdimensional for all we know.
This makes me think of, ironically more so than aliens, is what's going on inward rather than outward. That's what I'm more fascinated by.
Because you did have like the Nazis working on the Bell technology and all that stuff, didn't you? So
that's another thing that's made me think of. I'd love to do a video on that in the future. There was those, like in Hindu like texts and stuff, I don't know if it's just Hindu texts, those like flying shit, that could apparently fly. That is something I would love to like do a video on.
Apparently there's like whole schematics of them, like how they're
like
built or
detailed
work
and stuff. Well, because in like the yogic sciences, there's like a lot of in-depth stuff about like how nature works and people work on a spiritual level, and how that mixes into a physical level, and there's like a deep science behind it. So I'd actually be quite intrigued to look into these things and how they work, because I don't know whether they're supposed to be like a vibration thing or some form of energy, or I don't know, but that, this is why I like going into conspiracy theories, because so many things can spring off of it.
Just ask the Air Force officers at the U.S. missile silos, the nuclear missile silos, that have seen their silos and their nuclear arms disarmed by what are perceived to be extraterrestrial beings. They're very concerned that we are ultimately not just going to destroy ourselves, but could harm our planet, which is their world as well.
This is happening in the 40s. They're saying, oh, we're disappointed in humanity because of, you know, your use of nuclear weaponry and stuff and all this. Now, flight, like man-powered flight, was only invented in like what, the late 1919 or something like that, maybe early 20s. It wasn't like, it wasn't more than 30 years before this. No. So, and then now they're bugged by the fact that they're using nukes. Not being funny, if they've been separated from humanity for that long, and it's only 30 years that they've had powered flight for, how do they even know about humanity on the surface to be able to be like, we're disappointed in you humans, we know of you?
Even in the wars, you had, they called them Foo Fighters, didn't they? Which were UFOs that were seen following like the warplanes around and stuff like that. So whether these same people are the observers or the UFOs that are spotted in the sky and they're just keeping an eye, who knows, I don't know. We can only speculate, really.
I find it weird that when they find cities and civilizations underground, the first thing people go to is people that beings that have come from outside of Earth. Why couldn't it just be a separated group of people that over the course of history, what if there was an ancient civilization, the world had a natural disaster, these lot went underground and have now developed separately from us, and now there's a difference. That question never gets asked, which also makes me think maybe we're supposed to think it's aliens, because if we think it's something else, we could be closer to the truth.
Admiral Byrd was eager to share his story, but was ordered to remain silent.
That sounds
Byrd
like
comes
America.
back after this experience. He is taken to a government compound where he is told that he is never to speak of this publicly and that everything he says is classified.
Could Admiral Byrd's story point to a profound connection between the ancient traditions of strange beings living inside the Earth and the modern-day UFO phenomenon? Ancient astronaut theorists say yes.
Yeah. They say that on every show, don't they? Yeah, ancient astronaut theorists.
Well, they're not going to say no, because that invalidates their entire existence as a career.
Yeah.
I do find it weird, though, that these lot are going, oh, maybe it's aliens that live underground on Earth. What would lead you to believe that something that is built out of the Earth and exists under the Earth comes from outside of it? I'm more intrigued by the idea that this is a separate group of people that have always been here, and we're supposed to think that it is aliens.
And if it is like we talked about, where that old technology, like the Vinyamas or whatever, Vimanas, if something happened there and they took that under the ground, and then that's them that was like just obviously,
Maybe.
who knows, you know, it could be anything.
I mean, it makes me think that's why there's such a military presence there, because there's a shit ton of information that needs to be controlled in order for the status quo to remain the status quo. My thing is that if there is a shit ton of boundaries and rules and limits and weaponry and like law about what you can or can't know, it's probably worth knowing, and there's a lot of value to it that can do a lot of good and a lot of bad depending on who owns it.
I think it's quite interesting, the presence that's there.
Military presence specifically, because scientific presence, fair enough. The only time I would be worried about the scientific presence and whether I could maybe justify military things is if they're handling chemicals that are dangerous and they're researching it for weapons' sake. But I would imagine anyone going to Antarctica to do research, the things that they're going to be looking for is how things behave in like sub-zero temperatures, the makeup of the ground and the rock and the ice and the permafrost and all that sort of stuff, habitats, wildlife, how to grow food in an environment that isn't great and conducive for it. So why the fuck is there military personnel going down there? I mean, obviously maybe what they were trying to learn then was different, but I've never understood why you'd send a soldier instead of a scientist to do a research job. I mean, why are they taking soldiers anyway? Who are they anticipating shooting? And if the average Joe can't fly, who the fuck's showing up? I mean, you might be, oh, what if another military's there? Yeah, but why is another military thinking they need to be there in the first place?
Yeah, that's what I'd be curious to know, why they went in the first place, for what reason.
Yeah.
They've got the wrong name, unexplained zone. It's that unexplained files.
There's a lot of people have had this theory about like hollow Earth, where it's entirely hollow in there. Yeah. From his example, it to me more sounds like it could just be a fucking massive cave or a network of caves. Whether that then links to a entirely hollow core with entire civilizations doesn't really make sense, or as much sense. But is it feasible that there could be isolated groups of people living underground? Possibly. It's been done before. It wouldn't in times way before this. So could it be there now? Perhaps. But I don't know. The whole aliens narrative, I'm just fucking shoving that straight aside. Not that I think this is definitely real or not. I'm just thinking what logically makes sense, or how far can I stretch what I can kind of conceive as not just utter lunacy. And in that case, underground people trying to survive in a harsh environment kind of makes a lot more sense.
You'd have thought that geezer, like, on his deathbed or something, unless he died suddenly, he would have been like, right, I'm going to just tell people about this because I'm dying now, so it don't matter.
I'd laugh if he was just like taking his last breath and his family is around him and he just went, psych. and just dies. I don't know if there's been any other stories or documented cases of people coming out and talking about this sort of thing. But then, if it is true, and this guy did have that information, maybe as soon as he started wanting to talk about it, they got a tighter fucking chokehold on it. I don't really know. Yeah, people still don't fly over Antarctica and can't. But then I suppose...
Isn't there like no-fly zones over there as well?
I don't know if there's specifically no-fly zones or whether it's more they say the magnetic interference, plus it's an entire continent, so there's nowhere to like land and refuel, plus like winds and like poor environment is like even the bases that are there now in sort of regularly landing at places, they're hard enough for pilots to get to as it is. So crossing the whole thing, I don't know.
It says no, it's not illegal to fly over Antarctica, but there are practical considerations, probably like what you were talking about.
The way I want to look at these videos is I'm not going in to necessarily say this is bullshit and you're idiots. It's more like presenting a different opinion or a different perspective, and for all we know, this could be something that one of us do believe in, or we do both believe in, and we're just looking at it and reviewing it from that point, because at the end of the day, these are things that pertain to the unexplained, like the curious side of things. So why not explore it? We already talk about ghosts, and even when we end up on investigations, we're sharing theories on things, so this seems like it's the perfect thing to
I thought that was quite interesting. There's something different, wasn't it? It was cool.
Yeah, definitely. And for all we know, we could delve in and do podcasts around it and even more. We've got some conspiracy-based stuff upcoming anyway, so we can delve more into that. If you guys watching this enjoyed this and sort of are avid believers in conspiracy theories, you can drop them in the comments below and talk about the ones you want us to look at, or even share your own opinions on these things. And don't try to keep it peaceful in the comments as well. We don't need anyone calling each other idiots and bickering like children. At the end of the day, we all like to explore these things, we all like to have a conversation and think about it, so there's no need for childish behaviour. But yeah, if you're comfortable sharing these things, give us your opinion. If there's any theories you want us to take a look at and reference material for it, let us know. We'll take a look at that. And yeah, what do you think? Do you reckon it's hollow down there?
Well, like you said, I'm sure there's areas that are, and could there be people living there? Possibly, who knows, I don't see why not. It's not beyond the realms of impossible, so...
My thing is I think it's as idiotic to say there definitely isn't as there definitely is, because I will never know. But I do like looking at this stuff and learning about it. There is this common thing that happens in the world, and you see it's not just in conspiracies, but it is a common tactic to invalidate someone's argument to make them look like a fool. So I really don't like it. And that's the case because politicians do it.
Exactly, yeah.
And if politicians do something, if politicians do something, it's one of two things: immoral, and it works. So that's how you know it's genuinely a thing. So when you've got people talking about flat earth and stuff like that, you could believe that they are fucking idiots. Have a conversation with them, because the worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to disagree. At best, you could both come to a new idea of what could be true, and unless you have seen yourself proof, like as in you've witnessed the exact point yourself, you don't truly know. You've been told things, and you've been told to believe things, and that's that. So you really don't know. Like,
at the end of the day, as long as you can talk with people sensibly about it and share your opinions with each other and not get silly about it.
It's like, I find people who argue about flat earth fucking hilarious, because the person who says that there's a wall of ice around it has never seen it, and the person who says that, well, no, because we've been to space and you can see the globe, has never been to space. No. So I'm not saying that it is one way or the other, but have a conversation. I think there's a lot to be learned if you can talk with people and see their perspectives, and that's why I love looking at stuff like this. But fucking hell, we've made a half-an-hour video out of 5 minutes. This is exactly what we need. But anyway, guys, thank you for watching this one. We hope you enjoyed this conspiracy theory video. If there's any that you want us to check out and any you want to share with us or talk about in a future podcast, leave it in the comments or email us. I put the email on screen like I did for the last video. And yeah, I'll stick an iCard up there with all of our other playlists, ghost hunts, case files where we take a look at famous instances of paranormal and creepy goings on. We have our reactions, much like this one. We have our podcast. Check out those at your leisure, and we hope you have a fantastic rest of your evening. Peace.
Yeah, guys.